Hello, and welcome to Impera Project, a project built on a dream. Last time, we approached the subject of time from a Stoic perspective, using Dark Souls as an example of how changing the nature of time can change the meaning of life. If you haven't seen the episode yet, we heartily recommend you to do so. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you enjoy our content. This is the only way the project can continue. Today, we are going to explain the abstract concept of idealism and what exactly is an ideal. While this video is not meant to be a description of idealism as a philosophical current, this being kept for a later video, we will use some basic ideas of idealism to analyze the action of the novel The Great Gatsby by Scott F. Fitzgerald. Obviously, there will be spoilers ahead. The novel was also adapted into a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio as the main character, and for the first time we have to admit that the movie was not better and surely not worse than the book. You can safely watch the movie adaptation and you will get a pretty good idea of what the book is about. Not straying one moment from the source material. It is an authentic recreation of what Fitzgerald had in mind, and both the novel and the movie tell the exact same story in a very similar way. The Great Gatsby is a masterfully executed work of art, which presents us the life of J. Gatsby, an eccentric rich man which throws lavish parties and is both respected and feared by almost everyone. While the character in itself isn't worth the fear, the fog of mystery which surrounds this uncanny individual that not many people have seen in person builds up a sort of tension between Gatsby and every other member of the cast of characters. The fear of the unknown becomes so big that rumors start to fly. Some say he killed someone. Others say Gatsby is a relative of the Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany. The truth is, nobody really knows anything about him rather than him getting rich out of nowhere. Thousands of people come every night to his parties, but nobody really is invited. This shows how one man can feel loneliness, even if he finds himself surrounded by people. And how, in the absence of someone you need, every other human being becomes unimportant. The story is told from the perspective of Nick Carraway, a broker which just happens to live in a small house neighboring Gatsby Palace. It is also worth mentioning the fact that the place they live in is divided into west and east. While all the people who live on the western side of the small gulf are all arrogant and ignorant of everything outside of their small bubble, the people living on the eastern side tend to be more modest. This should serve as a small foreshadowing of Gatsby's true nature. While he has all the money he needs, they don't mean anything. Nick gets invited one day to his party only to discover that, in fact, he was the only one invited personally by Gatsby. This is important and gives him a sense of honor and pride. Discovering this mysterious, rich and elegant man, Nick enters a new world, admiring him but also seeing through his small charade. The cage of obsession and madness permeates the air surrounding him. Obviously, it wasn't pure coincidence that Gatsby decided to invite Nick and start making him his friend and ally. And here comes the hidden truth about Gatsby, and also the thing that interests us the most. He fell in love many years ago with a beautiful woman called Daisy, which just happens to be Nick's cousin, which lives on the western side together with her husband and kids. It is stated both in the book and also presented very well in the movie that every night Gatsby watches a green light that shines on the western shore. The green light represents the ideal. In the book we found this beautiful passage describing Gatsby's obsession with the green light. I decided to call him. Miss Baker had mentioned him at dinner, and that would do for an introduction, but I didn't call to him for he gave a sudden intimation that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arms toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily, I glanced seaward, and distinguished nothing except a single green light, minute and far away. That might have been the end of a dock. When I looked once more for Gatsby, he had vanished, and I was alone again in the unquiet darkness. The light usually symbolizes hope, the promise for better. It is not important what the light is, but what it hides. What is behind that light? Who is there, and how one can reach it? That is the ideal. Finding what one lacks and taking it, even if it seems impossible. A distant dream of the past, or a glimpse of the future. Gatsby knew exactly who was behind that light. He knew where his road would end, and even so, before meeting Nick, he never took concrete action to reaching that ideal. Nick serves as a catalyst, a middleman for fulfilling his dream, and yet, sometimes, it's better to never reach the end of your searches, because when one loses his reason to live, his reason to dream, there can only be degradation and ruin, and this is also what happens to Gatsby. Nick decides to help him reunite with Daisy after 5 years apart, and when they finally come together, not only Gatsby completely fails to maintain his allure of a calm and cold gentleman, he fails to comprehend the ruin settling in, the disease which his thirst for hope has kept away all these years. Daisy put her arm through his abruptly, but he seemed absorbed in what he had just said. Possibly it had occurred to him that the colossal significance of that light had now vanished forever. Compared to the great distance that had separated him from Daisy, it had seemed very near to her, almost touching her. It had seemed as close as a star to the moon. Now it was again a green light on a dock. His count of enchanted objects had diminished by 1. From that point forward, the whole character of Gatsby changes. It was already too late. He loses his temper in a fight with Tom Buchanan, Daisy's husband, and goes as far as hiding a crime. It is not surprising that Gatsby ends up killed. And there the degradation reaches its peak. He broke the 3 rules of happiness written by Immanuel Kant. Something to do, something to love, something to hope for. Gatsby threw all his parties, hoping Daisy will come to one of them. Now that he'd met her, there was no longer a point, and this is clearly shown by the way his house looks at the end. Betrayed by the woman he loved, he knew other won't do. And by discovering what is behind the green light, he finally let go of hope. The man, the legend, the mystery, always having lots of people swarming to his home like moths to a beacon of light, ends up dying alone, and only 2 people come to his funeral: Nick, his closest friend, and his father. People start ruining his reputation. His business partners leave him and pretend they never knew him. This is sometimes the price of reaching an ideal. In our society, we are always encouraged to follow our dreams, our passions, to follow ambition to obtain everything. But here is a good example of how sometimes obtaining what you so desire ends up ruining you. We, as human beings, forced to live by unfair standards, we kill the mystery, and we are obsessed with earning things that are not ours in the first place. We do not care, we do not dream anymore. This is how much the world changed, and how the great Gatsby came from an elegant and playful man to only a shadow, corrupted by the false power of a rich ideal. We hope you found this video interesting, and you haven't seen the movie or read the book, we advise you to do so. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you enjoy our work, and take care of yourselves.